This is Tracing Family Roots, a digital media documentary film production right here in beautiful Barbados.
My grandfather left Barbados, a Barbadian man, 24, 25, about 19, 21, 22. There was obviously some reason that caused him to leave his family here in Barbados and move to Guyana at such a young age. From following you, you would have done some serious research into the migration of Barbadians to Guyana in the early 1900s and perhaps before. Tell us about that. What perhaps were some of the push and pull factors?
So why did many Barbadians in the period after emancipation up until the early 20th century decide that they had to get out of the
When we were
island?
talking about the period after emancipation, what era specifically was that? We were talking about
1834, when slavery was ended, so to speak, abolished. So when between that period and the early, when your grandfather left for Guyana, when my father left for the Bahamas, as I said, my father was an older man, so your grandfather, my grandfather were the same age group, so to speak. So you had this, people weren't dire straits. This was the period of time before 1937. Remember, 10 years later, you had the outbreak you had the riots in Barbados. So all this people were boiling up towards that. The riots in 1937.
It was just in 1937 that you had the 1937 riots when things were so bad in Barbados, and it's not even 100 years ago, it's less than 100 years. So I realized you said that your grandfather, he went to Guyana in 1925, right? And so that would have been a couple of years before the riots. And things were really bad in Barbados. You had diseases were happening, people were not getting any work, sugar industry was in problems, and so on. So you would always find that Barbados as an avenue would seek immigration in order to better themselves and their families. Some of them kept in contact with their Barbadian relatives remaining here, but then others just went along and started new families.
So in the 20s, when your grandfather was leaving for British Guyana, my father left for the Bahamas. People obviously were in a position that, had become virtually untenable. They were looking for, some way to earn a better life for themselves.
My name is Deborah Dye Torrington. My maiden name is Dye. I was born in Guyana. Edward Austin Greenidge is my grandfather. My mother, who is Kathleen Dye Greenidge, is one of the 4 kids of Edward Austin Greenidge. He came to work on the sugar plantation.
So that is the story behind why many people left for various
So the social conditions here in Barbados
were tough.
Socio-economic conditions were tough.
Extremely tough in Barbados.
Of sugarcane,
yes,
production,
but a period when sugarcane production, yes, we have sugarcane production, but what benefit it was to the ordinary people.
My name is Brian Greenidge, and I'm the eldest son of Rupert Greenidge, who is the son of Edward Greenidge, and he's the second son of Edward Greenidge.
What are your memories of our grandfather, Edward Austin Greenidge? How far back can you remember our grandfather?
He was a very hard-working guy, a very tough guy. I knew from the little boy, he had a farm in Greenwich Park, back dam, that's Greenwich Park on the east bank of Essequibo. And he used to go there every day, every morning, and comes back late in the evening. And why I said to you just now, he's a very tough guy, because when he goes in the morning, and I know in those days, transportation was not like it is now. You couldn't get it, it was not so easy to get transportation to come back home. So you will see you were sitting on the platform at nights, and when the light of a car shines, you will see a guy walking with a bag on his head, one big bag on his head. And I shouldn't even say it walking. It's like a little jog. It's like a little jog. He's jogging with a bag on his head, coming home. So, and that was an everyday feature in his life. That's how we knew him. Every day he goes to farm. Maybe take some Sundays off, but he goes to farm early in the morning and comes back late at night. And this is one thing, he comes with his produce on his head in a bag and with a little jog. So he would have walked, if you know where Greenwich Park is, it's about 7-8 miles away from where we were living in the Cape. So it was a good walk. He was a tough guy, strong guy, hard-working guy.
Thanks for sharing that. That memory that you just shared, give us the time period of that memory.
That would have been in the 70s, in the 80s, 70s going into the 80s. It was like that. And he, so he was planting that farm all the time. I think he stopped somewhere in his early 80s.
I think more people should venture into to researching their own family, because too many of us, and many, especially the older people, never spoke too much about who were their relatives. Sometimes the relatives are right in the district, and they never said anything. So I think one of the things that can bring people together and for the people to know who they really are is for them to do some research and to document it. Don't just do it, document it. Write it down so that your children, your grandchildren can have good records about who they really are.
What next for us as a family post the 2018 family reunion, in your mind?
So the next, another family reunion, either in Guyana, but outside of the family reunion, as of today, what is percolating in my mind is that I need to make another trip to Barbados, and I need to do a second visit and reminisce again, outside of the family reunion.
In closing, I will continue to encourage Barbadians to find out more about themselves, find out more about their history, find out more about their families. Hold on to these stories that many of we are blessed in Barbados with sanitarians, a whole lot of them, and we need to hold on to their stories. That is our heritage. So I am hoping and I'm, encouraging more Barbadians to record their stories, share their stories, and that is how we can become, in many ways, I think it's one of the ways that we can become a better people. So share more, research more. It is the only way that we can continue to know more about ourselves.